Coming up on today's show.
But what it ultimately is about is a lot of times what's going on in your life. Who do you have in your life? How much positive energy is being poured into you? How much time can you focus on it? So it's very much about community. When I first started trying to get investors, and that's a whole process of being able to take what's happening and package it in a way where an investor would look at it and say, "Oh, I can see what you see." A lot of my business contacts and my personal contacts were very overlapped.
Yeah.
There was a period where I felt like I didn't know what to do next because it was like not only did I leave my job, but a lot of my social world left with that too.
Hi there. I'm April Page, breaking down the what, when, where, and how creatives get their inspiration. I'm a big fan of the cursey words, and I've been a creative for 30 plus years in marketing and fine art. This is where creatives unite to break down the facts of creative life. Buckle up. Let's get lost in the world of creativity together. Welcome, everyone, to Artist Antics with April, where we talk to creatives about creativity. And today I am very excited to sit down to talk to a Raleigh based real estate professional and entrepreneur. He's 15 years in sales and relationship driven work, founder of GroupLoop, which we're going to talk about, a platform designed to bring people together in real life, and spent over a decade studying how people connect, think, and make decisions. A creative thinker focused on human behavior, connection, and intentional living. Welcome, Malique. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad we finally got to it. It's been a couple months
Yeah,
now.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So the first thing I want to ask is like, how did growing up or your early experiences shape why you wanted to understand people and connection and like kind of where how this all came about, not just recently because I know it's a new software but or app, I'm sorry.
Software
And
super right.
yeah, so I love to hear the early inspiration, like this spark. Have you always been since a child somebody who's curious about understanding people, and then how did it get you to start this app? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the inspiration came a lot later, but when I was younger, I did get into psychology very, very early on, like probably like my sophomore, junior year in high school. I just had a class, and some of the things I was shown in that class was just it was unbelievable. And even though I was a super math major, like I'm a nerd,
You too.
I took I took like 27 hours of like AP classes in high school, and I started in college as a math major. And very quickly, it was just like, no, that's not actually what I'm interested in, even if that's how my brain works. And so I got into psychology. And when I first got out of college, my first job was I was a manager for the Census Bureau. And I got that job um, because of the degree, but it really was no application of psychology. And
Okay.
then after that job, I worked in with people with mental and physical disabilities.
Mm,
And there was somebody there who had been doing that work for 34 years. And I was 11 months in and I was already burnt out. I had a very, very tough case. I felt like I really couldn't do anything to improve this person's life. And it
right.
felt like it was like I didn't like what I wanted was to really improve my three clients' lives, but it really felt like it was the same thing over and over and over again, and there was nothing I can do.
Yeah.
They were an older population, and so I had always thought I would be an entrepreneur. I had always thought I would end up working in business. Even when I was younger, I was a high level basketball player. There was some chance I had a future in it, and I was still so focused on I thought I would be a business owner. And so that's when I started, right around 24 years old was the first time I held a business that was like an actual LLC. I had had small things prior. And in my first business was in fitness. And I was a boot camp instructor, and this company came along called Camp Gladiator that just recruited me. And then I ended up becoming the first trainer in my state, and the highest ranking trainer over the course of time. And that's where I really started to get into this idea of like what happened in the community because that company was very, very focused on that. Fitness, yes, it is about the science and it's about what you're doing with motivation wise and food wise and all that. But what it ultimately is about is a lot of times what's going on in your life. Who do you have in your life? How much positive energy is being poured into you? How much time can you focus on it? So it's very much about community, and it's about our interactions with each other. And so that started really kind of like moving my mind towards that. And that company was really good about community building. Yes, we would have our workouts, but every other week we'd have like events where people would hang out. And then, fast forward, a decade into me being in that company, we had 5,000 members in the Raleigh area, and we had all kinds of crazy things. We took over a stadium and had a big workout in the stadium, like the Durham Bull Stadium.
Yeah.
We had this huge bowling night that was probably like almost 600 people were there. It was, I mean, things that like you don't really have a reference for. I've never had another party that had 600 people at it. And so I just got kind of addicted to that part of it.
Yeah.
And as we got further and further along, that was my favorite part of it. And then I left that company, and I had a lot of personal changes that happened. And like after 13 years being in a company, especially one like that, where a lot of my business contacts and my personal contacts were very overlapped,
Yeah.
there was a period where I felt like I didn't know what to do next, because it was like not only did I leave my job, but a lot of my social world left with that too. And that got me really, really like tinkering about, well, if that happened to me and I had all these people around me, I'm sure it happens to other people, even if they don't have that many people around them. And how lonely
Yeah.
are people?
Oh,
And so I started to really like look into how to fix that problem for myself. And then once it got fixed for me, how could I fix it for other people?
oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, you've hit on all the topics, which I think are so very important, and I don't want to gloss over that, is you have to have, mind, body, and spirit healthy and thriving in order to, have an overall, I think, happy life in general. And I think we're genetically disposed to want community, to your point, and making sure that you're moving your body every day as, just a human, not even just as a creative, but it is the vessel that helps us to, for the creative side, helps us to bring out the things that we're here to create. And
Yeah.
if you're not taking care of it well, that will affect your whole life. I mean, health is everything. And then mentally, to that other point, I've just found out recently from going and supporting a poet that was on the show that had um, a poetry open mic night. And one of the people there had mentioned that there is a male from, I think it was 20 to 35 or 40 years old. I forget what his stat was, but there was one man committing suicide every minute of every day. And I
Yeah.
thought, what is happening? And I
Yeah.
know there are other, groups out there that have similar or even worse stats, but just overall males not being connected or feeling connected because we're working from home now and we don't know socially how to connect with people. There are a lot of men out there that haven't even asked a girl in person out on a date ever in their lives. Like they're all on
Yeah.
these apps. So it's just astonishing to me, the lack of community and connection and how important it is. So, thank you for championing, trying to help others from what you found in yourself. That's beautiful. So what's something most people get wrong about human behavior? Just in general, or if you want to take that any
Yeah.
road you want to, I'm just
Yeah.
curious your thoughts there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with Group Loop and even before, but especially with Group Loop, have done an incredible amount of research, like a gross amount of research. And there's like lots of things. Like, I mean, one thing that stands out to me is humans are built to gossip. So when you say like when you say genetically and you say you use kind
Yeah.
of like words like in my opinion, no, it is a fact. We are
Yeah.
social beings. And so, other the limitations of other animals is that they can only work with a certain amount of the same animal. So like monkeys is the one I can think of off the top of my head.
Right.
They
Or
work in
herd.
troops, huh?
Yeah. Or a herd of
Yeah.
elephants or a pack of wolves. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they work in a
Mhm.
certain amount
Yeah.
of however many of that species.
Mhm.
I think definitely going to get this wrong, but for one of the more advanced forms of apes, it's like 30. Their troop is like 30. And they hold each other accountable with gossip. They hold each other accountable with, um, if one member does something poorly, then the other members will hold them accountable to that thing. It's the same thing for us. Our number is more like 150, which is part of the reason why we ruled the world.
Hmm.
Um, and then you have all of this technology that makes it so now we can work with millions of people. We can work with,
Right.
the entire planet, and that's our like defining thing that separates us from the other species. But what comes with that is gossip. Like that, like when people think of gossip as this super negative thing, and of course it can be because people can do like really, gross things like that. But it is a part of how we think. It's a part of how we process other people's behavior. It's a part of how we process our own behavior, and that's not how I thought about it at all.
Yeah, and gossip can be positive too. Like if
Yeah.
you're talking to somebody about somebody you know and how great, their app is, or
Yeah.
how they got to there, what a beautiful story you have. So it's yeah, it's interesting to me all of that because you can't stop from the humanity or the humanness of it all and trying to weave in building that connection. So I'm going to go straight in and say, if you could explain to everyone what group loop is in general and how it works and what it's meant to do, I think that's a good place to do that right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. It's a creative podcast. Why would you have an investor or a realtor and, business owners? Because business looks a lot like art. When it's done right, like it's a constant creativity of putting this piece together with this piece together and how does it work together. And group loop, that's been a long process. Like, AI does a lot of harmful things for art. Obviously I think most artists probably think that, but it also can be very helpful. In the case of my app, without it I wouldn't have been able to create what I'm creating. Like I probably have asked 30,000 prompts to get to the point that I am to build out every part of it. But basically how it works is, um, if I have your phone number and you have my phone number, we can both see each other inside the app. So it eliminates some of these things that are out there, bad behavior on the internet, scams, that type of thing, because the only information you see is somebody that you are directly very closely tied to. I think that that's an even bigger value of it down the line is there's things that I can build onto the app. Think even like trivial things like movie reviews and things like that, where the movie review you see is from somebody you know, not from a random person. I think
Mm.
that will help us return to more community in the online space, which is not what it was directly built for, but I think it can also help in that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah,
But
because you trust those around you, their opinion. Yeah. Go ahead.
yes,
Yeah.
and so, but how it works in person is, um, after you get that connection to the two people, the other thing you do is you put your interests. So, like, if you like to go to the beach, if you like poker, or if you like to go out for drinks, it helps with amount of people you connect with, and it can help with depth. So, for instance, we went to the beach for my birthday, and we rented out a house, and there were 12 people that went on that trip, and six of them, there's no way I would have thought to invite those six people to that trip.
Mm.
So it helped with identifying six other people that would want to go on that trip that I wouldn't have thought to invite.
Right.
The other thing is like depth of connection. So like, let's say you and I go out for drinks all the time. I may not know that you're a poker player, but that may never come up. But the app would teach me that you're a poker player and I'm a poker player and help us
Right.
set up a poker game. So it helps with depth as well.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, that's funny because you do tell people about things you've done, and they're like, "Well, why didn't you tell me that you were doing that?" And you'd be like,
Hmm.
"I didn't know. I didn't know you would want to." It's
Yeah.
like, I think you're so busy with your kids and your husband that why would I, think to invite you? So it's
Yeah.
interesting to me that whole, it's giving people more connection options if they want to participate, which I really
Yeah.
like. And it's not
Yeah.
just blind meetups that you don't know anybody. It's actually the people in your group that are doing things where they're actively inviting other people if they want to come, and then you can decide if you want to jump in or not. And I really like that part. Does it have a calendar on it? Sorry, I know I have it on my phone, but I haven't
Yeah.
looked that far yet.
It doesn't, for a couple of reasons.
Mm,
So you asked about, or you spoke about human behavior. So I've like
mhm,
learned a lot in this about human behavior. Like one of the big things, of course, people know this, is that there is an emotional cost to showing up to a social event.
mm,
So when I'm sending out details about events, if there's any ambiguity about what's going on, that will cause people to show up less. If there's changes, that will cause people to show up less.
Yep.
And so all of these things are working underneath. There's an anxiety that's working underneath for people with when it comes to anything social.
Yeah.
And so while that is the current iteration of the app, which is for me to put together something and then you come to it, ultimately what I want to be able to do is make it easy for you to make your own things with your own group, where you're not showing up to a new group of people where you don't know what's going on, that scares you from showing up, where it just makes it easier for you to set it up for your own group.
Right.
And so like right now, typically when people show up to an event, they bring someone. So people already have this idea of this network of like, when I go do something social, I really want to bring my friend to this social thing. And
Yeah.
what the next version of the app will do is make it so that it's not just one person. You'll be able to do that with 4 or 5 people and do it much easier. So once we get through this next round of funding, the next step will be to be able to create your own boards inside the app that are very easy to set up and distribute. Because when you like, let's say you wanted to go out for drinks, you probably have a group chat, and that group chat, all these things are flying all over the place, and it makes it very hard for you to plan something. You
Hmm.
might get invites to things that you really don't want invites to, and same thing. Like you might say, well, we're going out at 6 p.m., and then somebody says, well, I don't get off of work until 6:30, and then there's a whole other discussion about the time again. So it becomes this very,
Right.
very hard thing to do. So this
Right.
next part of the board will make it very simple. And then finally, the last thing will be that it will automatically plan it for you. That's the end goal. And that will lower the barrier enough that people will actually go out. Because the number one thing I've learned in all of my research is people want to go out, they want to spend time with people, but it takes too much energy to figure it out.
Yeah.
So if you
It's
can lower
true.
that.
And even if you're just a follower, it's too much energy because you're like, where are you
Yeah.
going? What are you doing? How many people are going to be there?
Yep.
What is the atmosphere? All the things. Because you're like,
Yep.
do I even want to take the time? And I think, and I love your perspective on this, I think, and it's what I'm learning about my own management of time right now, is that people want to be really mindful of where they're putting their time. It's like the number one thing I have to give in my book.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I want to make sure that where I'm going and what I'm doing is really gonna be something I want to do, or something I'm interested in, or something that benefits me in some way, even if that's just socially. So I love to hear your thoughts on that about time management, and not just creation of an event or trying to raise your hand to be in it, but it helps
Yeah.
me to figure out where I want to spend my time.
Yeah, all of those things you're thinking about in your head are the reasons why people don't show up to things.
Hmm.
And to your point, I mean, of course, like money is replaceable, but your time isn't. Maybe we'll figure that out with science, but it isn't. And these days, it's even more strained than it's ever been. And the
Yeah.
reason being, one, most people are having to have more than one job, because of everything that's happening,
Yep.
economically.
Yep.
And then secondarily, every company is trying to steal your attention.
Yeah.
All of the apps are built in a way, it's actually gross. As I get further into this world and I interact more with people that are building these things, there's a whole line of reasoning, which is I can't build a successful company without hurting people, without stealing their attention, without doing these bad things that all these companies do, which I don't subscribe to. Like I want to build an ethical product that does not make you spend infinite time inside the app. It prompts you, it's actually useful, it actually tries to deliver a service, and then it leaves your attention to do all the other things that you want to do. But
Yeah.
it's definitely a real thing that our time is super strained these days.
Yeah. No, it's for sure. And I'm being more and more mindful of where I'm spending it. That's for sure. Because as business owners, we have to really figure out the balance there. So I know you talked briefly about it being your own experience that sparked you for this idea, but what was that exact moment that you thought, oh, I really have something here? What happened, or what were you thinking in that exact moment?
Yeah, so when I left that business, I actually very soon after left a 5-year relationship. And they kind of went hand in hand. It was,
Mhm.
we were talking about next steps, and part of the difficulty in it was what was our community. We didn't have, you know, I feel like maybe she felt like she had her community because I think females just in general are better at that than males are. But I certainly felt like I didn't have mine. When it came to thinking about if we had a wedding, who would we invite? I had no clue. And so the first iteration of this before there was ever an app was I was I was a region director in this company over like 5,000 people. I was like, who of these people are actually my friends? Like, who of them are
Right.
people who I serve, and who of them are actually my friends? Because there's so much gray area. And I came up with some criteria for like kind of separating it. And that number quickly went from like 5,000 people to like 15 people. And that was the first like of me thinking it like about this. Like I'm 32 years old, 33 years old. I had already experienced quite a bit of success, but yet I did everything I was supposed to do with my business. I did everything I was supposed to do with my relationship, and I was completely unhappy. And so then I started to look more into it. And then not too long after that, I started to date my who's now my wife. And um, it was very in the beginning of that, I still felt that same pull, and I was like, she's very much like a person who she's a planner and she likes to have events and she likes to host. And I really, really like that. That was something I was like kind of missing. And so then we started to like every month we would just be the people who hosted stuff for our friends.
Yeah.
And I was playing around with the app. I had some ideas for it, but it wasn't like concrete what it is now. And then about 2 years into that, I realized, oh, what I want the app to do and what it's helped us do, like that trip I talked about for my
Yeah.
birthday, it like everything we've done, we had invited people based on what the app was telling us people wanted to be invited to. So there was about a 2 year period in there where I realized, oh, everything I want the app to do for other people, it's already done for me. It's already improved my social life, improved, my mental health. And that's what I wanted to do. And so that was when it clicked. And that's when, we had about maybe June of last year. I sat down and I was like, we spent $14,000 in this app. It's kind of still like a side project because at that point I had transitioned out of my last business. So like when I left my last business, there was some residual money I got paid from it, and my daughter was born, and so there was a time period in which I was partially stay at home. I was getting into real estate, going through the licensing and such, and still doing some training of some of the people that left with me when I left. And so it was like it was very like low stress for a while. And then I started to pick it up and started to pick it up in real estate. And I was like, well, we spent $14,000 on this, and I don't like there's no chance that this can do anything yet. And so I sat down to figure out, do I want to let it go or do I want to step further in? And then I started working on the business plan. And as I got deeper and deeper into it, I was like, no, this can be like a huge thing if I can do certain parts of it. So that's what made me go
Yeah.
from it being kind of this side thing to like right now, I spend about 50% of my time in real estate because that's what funds what I'm trying to
Yeah.
do. But
Yeah.
this is ultimately like my passion and what I really want to do and what I think can affect the most people. And so hopefully it'll be my full time at some point.
Hey, real quick, every other week I sit down with real working creatives, no filters, no fluff, just the truth about what it actually takes to build a life through creativity. If that's the kind of content you want more of, please subscribe. It's free. So you never miss a conversation that might just change how you see your own creative path. And I also share painting videos and videos talking about meaning behind each one of my art pieces. So drop a comment below. Tell me what's resonating. Tell me what you want to hear next. This channel's growth is because you show up for us, and I very much appreciate it. And now let's get back to the good stuff.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, uh, take us through the process of, you decided in June to do this, which by the way is when I decided last year to start my business. So congratulations.
Hmm.
But take us through like you don't have to go through every step, but
Yeah.
when you decided, like, what are the steps of you actually creating the app? I know you probably, I don't know if you hired,
Yeah.
anyone, or you did testing and then maybe beta testing with users, and
Yeah.
then now it's on the app store. So take us through that process. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of that. So for in that previous 2 years, there's already a developer I've been working with for the last 2.5 years. So he had developed it to that point. And that's where the most of the $14,000 went. There's like about like maybe 1,500 of that was like just the running of the app, but the rest of that was paying him to build it. And so that's the first point where the AI up until that point was a huge thing because I was a very early adopter. Like I recognized like the existential problem that it can cause for us,
Right.
but there's nothing I can do about that. So until we figure out what we're going to do about that, you need to not fall behind. You need to use it. If you're one of those people who said I'm not going to use it, you should use it. And I
Amen.
mean, learn about it. Don't just use it to like do like a prompt, like
Yeah.
learn about it. But anyway, that's a whole different podcast for, different
Yes,
place.
it is. But I agree with
Um,
you 1,000%. I'm
yes.
actually using it in all kinds of ways. And maybe we'll have another show about that. That would be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wouldn't when I tell you like all the little details and all the little side shoots and the entire like ecosystem that is what I want to do in the end, there's no way possibly I ever could have held that in my head prior to having AI. And so when I sat down to write the business plan, it ended up being like a 60-page business plan. Also wouldn't have
Mm,
been that long and written in the time that it was without that. And it just organized it in such a better way than my brain ever could.
yep.
And so when I could see it laid out, I was like, oh, this is actually like really cool. And like even more cool than I had in my head.
Right.
Because it also will suggest things that you didn't really
Don't
think to
think
think
of.
through.
Yeah. Oh, I get that every day. Yeah. Go
Yeah. And
ahead.
so I got to that point, and that was June. And at that point it was already an LLC. I had that for like 2 years. But in order to build what I'm trying to build, it has to be like like a full corporation. And so like all the research into like what that looks like, that was a huge thing. There's a legal service that I use that was it was not overly expensive. It was about $1,000, but it taught me a lot of stuff and got all the paperwork to be like as formal as it needed to be. And this is where like it kind of overlaps with creatives and just all of this is a very creative process to figure out like each piece and put it together. And so then the next thing was, like you said, I started doing some beta testing, and really trying to. I did a lot of surveys, a few hundred surveys, trying to just get more information about what to build next. Because in these situations, it's very easy to build a new piece of the app that nobody wants to use.
Right.
So before you spend the money, you do the research to figure out if anybody wants it.
Yes.
So
Good
we did
point.
that.
Yep.
And then around October of last year is when I first started trying to get investors. And that's a whole process of being able to take what's happening and package it in a way where an investor would look at it and say, "Oh, I can see what you see," because like there's such a lag behind what they see, but from what you see. And then that's when I started. Every one of these things is a huge like learning process. And then I realized as much as I had gotten done at that point, it's not a coherent story,
Yeah.
and there's lots of things that I needed to prove. And at that point, everything that's happening with like the events that I have, it's very dependent on me. So it becomes the next thing was proving that the system could work without me. And it continues to be that. Like every step I take is proving
Right.
a system rather than my own passion that makes things happen.
Yep.
But at this point, I've proven all that stuff, and I'm very annoyed because I like if this in venture capital, that's what the
Yeah.
world. So like the investor that I'm talking to now, the reason why we haven't like come to an agreement is because she very much thinks in the way of I'm starting a store down the street and I put a certain amount of money in, and then a couple months later a certain amount of money comes out. That's not how venture capital is with this, like a tech company. Like you're putting money in expecting this huge upside down the line, but it might take 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. That's a very different world. And so we can't get on the same page about that. The frustrating thing is if I were a part of certain groups, I would already have the money. If I
Yeah.
had gone to Stanford or Harvard,
Amen.
like, well, this particular, like, this world leans so heavily in that direction. The
It's
second
the
thing
same
is,
in the art world, by the way. So if you
yeah,
don't come up in the right art colleges and you don't have the right galleries that initially launched you, and then
yeah,
you don't get the play in the art world, like you're, a newcomer into the world and you have very good art, but because you didn't come up through the way they expect, that's what I'm trying to use AI for right now is to
yeah,
disrupt how art and art collectors are sold to. So
yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, and
go
that's what
ahead.
it will do. It will smush. That's what a big effect is. It smushes. I mean, another one of them is if I lived in Silicon Valley, that's where a lot of the money is. Raleigh is starting to get its own ecosystem. I'm
Hmm.
actually going to Raleigh Durham Startup Week next week, and hopefully I will get some good contacts and things there and learn a
Yeah.
lot. And maybe even find an investor. And then the last one is only 13% of this type of money goes to minorities. And so there's a lot of things that I'm battling, and it can be frustrating because it's like I'm incredibly well researched on this, and how far I've gotten along in my company, it should have already been funded if I had the right network.
Yeah.
But I'll keep working on it. I'll keep making it better. It'll keep getting there, and then hopefully I'll be able to take that big step.
Yeah, no, that's great. And
Mm.
yeah, we just have to keep on keeping on. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just trying to beat my drum and say, hey, I've got some good art here that could be good focal pieces. And now I'm circumventing the galleries and I'm not doing the art festival outdoor shows anymore. So I'm
Yeah.
going straight to the art consultants and dealers and being just cutting everybody else out and being like, let me go to the people who are looking for art for people that need it in their homes or restaurants or hotels. So that's what I'm doing, is trying to just go straight there and be like, here's what I've got. I'm available for a commission. But so you said you want, and I want to talk about intentional living for a second. I want to kind of switch gears. You said you want to build a life that feels intentional, like we all do, not just successful on paper. So, how does that look right now, do you think, for people in general? And I know this is kind of a broad question, but maybe what success looks like, because I know, we have moments where things look successful externally but they don't feel right internally,
Hmm.
which is something I have gone through in the last year and a half, because I've had my new identity as not being a senior marketing consultant any longer, and really going all in on being a fine artist and being very proud of that. But it took me to a little bit to switch gears of that identity. I was really connected to that in many ways. And I've had other identities that have kind of fallen since then too, which I think are interesting. It feels like a very much a growth period for me now, and
Hmm.
figuring out, who am I now in this next iteration, almost like a new layer that's blossoming that I didn't know was in there. And I wouldn't have seen it or felt it if I hadn't have made the decision to go down this path. So I just want to talk about success internally versus external. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say for me, like I told you, I got to that place where I felt like I had succeeded in a lot of ways and I just wasn't happy with it. Um, at that point, I didn't want to be married. And I was back and forth about whether I wanted kids, and I was trending towards not wanting them. Funny enough, what, 6 or 7 years later, I'm married. I'm obsessed with my wife. I have a 4-year-old. I'm obsessed
Oh,
with her.
yeah.
And
Congratulations.
thank you. And it's all I care about.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not to say that, anybody who doesn't want to have kids, like it's better to go one way or the other. Just for me personally, that child has taught me so many things and changed
Mm.
me in such a way that you would not expect a kid to be able to do.
Yep.
Um,
They
now,
sure do teach you. I used to,
yes.
I volunteered for Montessori school in Florida, and I also taught at one here in Raleigh with the
Yep.
professor from Duke University. We were there together teaching them a couple of things. We actually, in the one here, we were teaching them AI and AR with
Hmm.
the goggles and the glasses and everything. But so yeah, every time I teach children, they teach me something that I would have never thought about, or um not just like creatively. It's more than that, to your point. Like, they are teaching me life lessons without even realizing that's what they're doing,
Yeah.
and they just challenge you constantly to be like, well, why not? I'm like,
Yeah.
"Mm, I'm not sure why not."
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, let me think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're very much teachers, and they're so open. I just love that. I wish we could perpetuate that, and have more of that as they grow up. I know I sound like an
Yeah.
old
Yeah.
person when I'm saying that right now, but it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
go
and
ahead.
I, I think that most people are obsessed with their kids. Well, I guess some people aren't, but are obsessed with their kids. But like she's so genuinely special. Like not because
Yeah.
she's mine,
Yeah.
but like, and if she's in a room with 100 other 4-year-olds, she will stand out amongst the 100 4-year-olds. She is the leader of the kids all the time.
Oh,
She's so
wow.
incredibly intelligent, incredibly empathetic. I can remember like when she was like 1 years old, like we'd go to like the park or something, and she would like throw a fit if we didn't give her toys to someone else.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
she's such a special person, and I get to have her. And my wife is the same way. Like my wife, um, she's one of those people that like. I almost have to like slow her down because like she will give so much of herself to the point of like hurting herself to take care of other people. And
Right.
those are the two people that I get to spend all my days with.
Yeah.
And I didn't have either of those two people six years ago. And so to go from this place of feeling like you're so lonely and you're doing all these things, you have all these people around you, but you don't really have like your people, to
Right.
going to having those two people, that has been success for me for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And now I made some, like I said, I had some residual money from my last company, and so I was able to basically cut out like a third of my work because it was already being paid for by my previous work. And then, like I said, I was training, so I was like that was like a third of my work. That was in the mornings before really anybody was doing anything, and then
Mhm.
a third of my work was getting into real estate and into GroupLoop. But there was like this kind of dormant period, and so as that money started to dwindle. Of course, and not really being full time into my next things, make less money than I have at other times.
Yeah.
And I think there's a large part of my life where that would have been a problem for me. But I'm so focused on those two. Like every Monday and Tuesday, like as busy as I am, every Monday and Tuesday, which is about to go away because I'm getting busier, I take off because my wife is off on Mondays and Tuesdays. She typically works Wednesday to Sunday. And so like I get to spend all that time with her.
Yeah.
And my daughter is with my ex. I have her 12 days a month. And during the 12 days that I have her, I do nothing else. I do
Yeah.
nothing else, just her. And so in the 15 or so days that I have to work, I usually will work 12 to 14-hour days those days, and I'm extremely disciplined. And so that's how it's worked for me to balance it out, is to have
Yeah.
a level of discipline that maybe some people don't have, and to try to be um as focused on what I'm doing when I'm doing it and not focused on anything else as possible. But in this next world, because I am getting to that point, I'm a high achiever. Um I want a lot. And so I'm getting to the point now where Mondays and Tuesdays are going to have to start to cut. I'm not going to take all the time away because that wouldn't be good for my marriage. But I'm going to have to start getting into those being part-time days that I'm still working, maybe 5 to 6 hours those days. And I'm going to have to start doing some more work when my daughter's around. Um, but that's what's next. Like the next things for me is to get back to six figures in real estate, which I'm only saying this because my wife yells at me and my mentor yells at me about never taking credit for stuff, or never stopping for the credit. I got
Yeah.
rookie of the year last year in my real estate company.
Oh,
Um,
congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. And I was competing against 28 other new people. And so 28 people is not that much in my head. So I was like, that's not really that important. But my wife showed me about it, and my mentor. So um, yeah, I'm very proud of that. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
move that into a more successful year this year. And then to use that money to build the next part of my app, which if there's any investors out there that happen to be listening to this, the
Yeah.
next stage I need to make is just $50,000. I actually just got an offer last week about it, but it wasn't a good one. So if you are more in the mind of venture capital, please get
Yes.
to me. And
For
then that's
sure.
my
And
next stage.
yeah, and tell everybody where they can find Group Loop and where they can find you, either for realty, or do you have a general website? Just, give us all the details.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, the easiest, at Malique Booker, Malique
Okay.
Booker. Um, Group Loop is available in the App Store for Apple. Um, the Android version is coded, but because of some of the rules with Android, I need 20 new users to test it. So if it is something that's interesting to you, I just need you to get in contact with me so that we can do testing on it, and then it'll
Okay.
be available for Android. And then I mean, Instagram is probably the easiest way to find me if it's not in your
Okay.
socials or something for real estate as
Yeah.
well.
We'll put all your information in the description too, so everybody can have it. Well, thank you so much for your time
Yeah,
today. That was great. I really enjoyed it. I got some tips out of it, so thank you for that.
yeah.
I will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Feel free to nominate yourself or someone you know as our next guest. Thank you for being a part of our creative community. Stay inspired and keep shining bright.